Come giro. Entra. Più piano. Prova. Dove stanno? Prova. Prova. Sì. Prova. Prova 1. Prova 1. Prova 2. Si sente? Prova 1. Prova 2. Posto 1. Questo. Prova sempre a fare perfetto. Prova 1. Prova 2. Prova 1. Prova. 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 Prova 1. Prova meno. Venga. Prova 1. Prova 2. Sì. Come l'aperi tutti? Buongiorno a tutti. Chiuso qua. Aperi, buongiorno.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Colonel Will Daniel. I'm the newly assigned Deputy Director at COESPU. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. It is a great pleasure and privilege for me to welcome you to the Trilateral Stability Policing Day, the second annual. It's co-organized by the NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence, the permanent members of the European Gendarmerie Force, and the Center of Excellence for Stability Policing Units. These three institutions represent the so-called Stability Policing Hub of Vicenza. Today's event is intended to build upon and leverage this mutually reinforcing unique set of skills and capabilities on the specific domain of stability policing. The NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence, adopting a particular perspective through the lens of the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance, the EuroGen4 essentially focused on a European Union approach, and COESPU predominantly UN-oriented in its training and doctrinal activities. Today's conference has two distinct overarching objectives. The twofold aim is indeed to reinforce and boost the cooperation and the joint endeavors of the three institutions. And secondly, to identify new concepts, ideas, and lessons learned to be further developed, refined, and shared within the Stability Policing Hub and within the community of practice. First of all, with the relevant international organizations linked to the three institutions, and then with other peacekeeping training centers and partners. In terms of concrete outcomes, our expectation is to jointly publish the summary of the proceedings from the presentations and discussions conducted within the framework of today's event. I'm particularly delighted to greet the external experts and the interns that accepted the invitation to participate in this event. Just to name a few, we have members from the 2nd Mobile Brigade present. CTAF is represented. The Association of 11 September. And we expect the U.S. Consulate from Milan to send a representative as well. So with that being said, I'll now review today's agenda. After my presentation, Armando will present on hybrid warfare conducted by Colonel Rosa from the Stability Policing Center of Excellence. The second, chaired by EuroGen4, will see separate presentations. Colonel Giuseppe Destris, Director of the Stability Policing Center, present the NATO on 2022 concept. Colonel Bartley, Deputy Commander of the EuroGen4, will explain what the EU. Finally, Lieutenant Colonel Marina Bizzotto, COESPU Chair of Policing for Forestry, Agriculture, and Agri-Food, will discuss environmental protection and stability policing. The final session of the day, chaired by the COESPU, will introduce the topic of engagement by Major D. from the Public Affairs Office, and plan presented by the Studies and Office Chief, Lieutenant Colonel. This will allow us to share our training schedules for 23 and 24 as well. In the afternoon, we will have the internal session with 3 working groups that will discuss the topics presented in the morning, and we'll try to capture ideas, concepts, or lessons learned to be further developed in the future. I would invite this. Just a quick note before we move on. Ask everyone to think about to listen and think about the so what. What is it that either in or and prepare yourself for working groups this afternoon. I would also encourage you to ask questions. I will also allow the commanders seated up here to provide us some commanders guidance for the afternoon sessions. And then we will we'll listen to the outreach later this afternoon. With that being said, floor to the co-executive.
Thank you, Will. You for Salves, Excellence Director, Colonel Giuseppe De Magistris, distinguished officers and guests from the United States Consul Milan, who are still waiting, Miss Bazarnic, from the Association, General Paola. Ciao. I'm coming here to enlist in our with colleagues, the brigade, the United States from the commander, Colonel and Lieutenant Colonel Tommaso Martello, colleagues from the CETA Africa and Mr. Christopher Macking. Ladies and gentlemen, following the event in live streaming on our YouTube channel, our webpage, amongst which I like to mention Colonel Antonio, Director of Excellence. A very good morning, Policing Day. I'm delighted to hear the opening remarks of Colonel Gonsalves and Colfris together representing the so-called stability whose structured cooperation is anchored in the COESPO, Eurogen 4 permanent headquarters, and NATO Stability Policing Center of trilateral technical arrangement signed on December 2016. Issue that are more deeply discussed during the working groups in the afternoon would require at least an entire day or even longer for each one of them. Still, the overarching idea is not the define realistic and for the identification of some recommendations have this institutions and with relevant partners and states. I know the specifics, such as the hybrid warfare and the NATO 2022 strategic concept, have for the NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence, as well as for Eurogen 4. And I look forward to listening to the keynote speaker session, as well as the besides the last years, we could have not imagined to be forced to consider P5 member as the most significant and direct threat to ally security and to peace and stability in the Euro-Atlantic area, and another one as the main competitor. Seemingly, we couldn't expect to undergo systematic hybrid attacks with the weaponization. This is an invented word, but it means to transform in a weapon, how to transform in the energy and natural resources, cyber attacks, and misinformation. We should strive to predict and to contribute to prevent such dynamics, both developments of the regional and in charge of coping with contributing and training of the personnel to ensure the highest effectiveness. I'm also confident that the three themes presented by COESPO officers will be considered particularly interesting by the audience. The environmental operations was of our high-level international and is one cutting concept embedded in most of our training packages. Mastroianni, Deputy Secretary General of the Mediterranean Union, recalled that over the last century, 79 conflicts were climate change. Similarly, in the document Post-Conflict Building and Natural Resource Management published by the Nation to natural resources. The topic is therefore absolutely crucial, both to prevent conflicts and to ensure post-conflict sustainable peace. It is key that the deployments in the third country meet the standards of environmental sustainability trial. All possible projects of recovery, redeploy. Additionally, it is fundamental to strengthen the capacities of local development agencies in this domain. By building against crime. In fact, recognized to be a driving force for us, such as money laundering, the financing of non-state armed groups and terrorist groups, and of course, serious transnational crime. As far as media engagement is concerned, consider has the age within has reached in our lives. Of communications, electronic, made it possible for the citizens through the social media to the formation and to the control of power, making communication itself the instrument that in some way guarantees all freedoms, freedoms of thought, freedom of the press, freedom of information, communication, effective democracy. Gutenberg, in press, kind, a new breakthrough, and the same of the digital highways, which brought us to a true ocean of rapid communication and consultation. Today, we are all, therefore, ever feel the need for free manipulationing, defined in the United Nations agenda. As emphasized by the United Nations Secretary General, the ability to cause large-scale disinformation and undermine scientifically established facts is a potential risk of rigorously of the random expression everywhere, more for interest in media, social media, and trend with the general code of conduct that integrity information and recent concerns about trust and mistrust linked to the techno space, a better comprehension, regulation, and managing of our digital commons as a global public good. What we can jointly do to advance together domain is one of the questions of the day. Finally, planning is timely and structured our Stability Policing Center of Excellence Director. I'm perfectly aware that prior to engaging joint training or doctrinal endeavors, you need to receive the approval of the steering committee and seeming, and therefore the sharing of projects and other initiatives well in advance is a condition sine qua non. Strive also to encourage and minded as dynamic single word out of the box, raising questions and highlighting criticalities, even if at this stage we do not have appropriate answers and solutions. Lastly, I kindly invite the speakers, working group leaders, to collect, summarize, and solutions and of the in Gospel magazine proceedings of. I wish you all a very fertile, constructive, and productive stability policing working day. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you, General Albano, for your remarks. I would ask that
Yes, have the burden to break the ice today, and hopefully will satisfy the recommendation by General Albano to think out of the box. My presentation today is hybrid threat and hybrid warfare, and clearly it's from NATO the controller works. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thanks a lot. Talking about and first impression would be between hybrid warfare, between the term warfare and a police environment. Well, in a minute, you will have the answer to this question. Let's start from the NATO 2022 strategic concept that will be to details by the Magistris later. But I isolated from the strategic concept one paragraph that is introduced hybrid into consideration that a hybrid is a totally strategic, because in the in 2010 we were not then completely new the need to introduce in its doctrine. Well, from the I have isolated three concepts, three parts. First, and is partially answering the question that I asked before, why police? As you can see from the and I have in the paragraph, you can see that it's not limited. It's economic and information is a content where you can the second point I have isolated into this slide is related to Article 5. As you perfectly know, Article 5 is the threshold by NATO we knew NATO considering the possibility that hybrid could trigger Article 5 threshold. Then we are not talking now about the possibility of a traditional or conventional military threat against NATO, but something different, something else. Clearly, something else in terms of threat requires something else in terms of defense. And we are progressively moving to what is important for us. Third point I've isolated in this slide is the relevance of European Union that has been included into these paragraph. Partnership is important, and this is one more why we are discussing about from NATO perspective, but all today in this the framing concept. I'll give you a doctrinal before it's of things, then of hybrid threat. As you can see immediately, is a combination of conventional, irregular, asymmetric activities. And we stop on this point in a second, in a few slides. Space. Put up because we'll be on in this is the of irregular activities. How irregular is relevant of hybrid. You can see here, I put criminally motivated, that progress move to direction. Then general hybrid, different kind of, as you can see, threat of irregular activities. And is self-explanatory why is relevant also police perspective. Last definition that I'm proposing here is the definition of asymmetric threat. Asymmetric threat has also a relevant role in hybrid. We can discuss hours about asymmetric threat, but what is relevant, I'd like to stress here to support our discussion today, is the disproportion of results. Then you have non-conventional actors that with limited means, and we are progressively moving to time and space concept, limited means that with a tactical approach having strategic effects. The of asymmetry, possible strategic effect. This slide is illustrating how hybrid and asymmetric is definitely changing our traditional understanding, traditional approach levels of war. Fully clear here and strategic with hybrid is not for the reason for, because a tactical event at tactical level, a minor level, could easily have strategic effects. Then the domains, NATO recognized 5 domains that you can see listed in the box on the slide. The approach to these domains is totally different compared to particularly the domain, the cyber domain that will be discussed really in a few minutes. Now, go back to I mentioned about not only military. You can see from this is clearly how the instruments of power are part of the game. Make important role can easily get political, civil instruments of power are relevant to the hybrid. What is complicating the game for the particularly for the military approach is that, as you can see from the diagram, is a combination of horizontal escalation, then a combination of different instruments. The vertical escalation, simple adversary can select how to play with different instruments. Clearly, it's difficult from a single actor, for instance, the military, to manage the horizontally, vertically at the same time, and play with different kinds. You need different actors playing at the same time to defeat or to mitigate the hybrid threat. What I mentioned before is stressed more by these slides, because we have different instruments of power, but they are targeting different vulnerabilities. Then the target of hybrid threat is not only the military instrument, but is the entire society, civil population, infrastructure, the political system. And this is clearly complicating the game, also in terms of we will see in a minute. This might find why my presentation is threat hybrid. Again, this is that could require very briefly. I like to point. We have discussed internally several times, and all of us, we are absolutely familiar with the concept of the gray zone. Well, the gray is the space hybrid threat will be transformed into hybrid war. Hybrid zone is really the space where there is for the police domain to face the threat. And as you can see, from hybrid threat, the conflict could escalate to hybrid war. Now, going back to the military part, I put the title like the center of gravity dilemma. To give the military strategy, but I'll to remind that the most important activity for a commander at any level of war identify the center of gravity of the enemy or of the military. That is required and so we have seen that different instruments of power at the same time could put multiple non-military centers of gravity, and it is clearly complicating the life of the military. The primary single can be shifted horizontally and the adversary continue the initial part of contrasting the threat. This slide is just to show you that despite we are discussing right now extensively about hybrid, in fact, nothing new. And historical examples of hybrid campaigns, and just to show that right now probably nothing new in terms of strategy. Question could be, okay, why now hybrid is so relevant compared to 20 years ago? We'll discuss in a minute about the accelerated changing game. Before that, provide the will be illustrated details in a few minutes. The identifies two major hybrid actors are Russia and China. That what we're discussing right now is absolutely available to the public. And I'll show you really a couple of minutes, a couple of examples. Let's start 1999 years ago. The title is Anti-Warfare. We don't have the time for the details of this book, but as you can list it, a number of characteristics of hybrid or asymmetric or unrestricted warfare. You can see there is room for non-symmetric, multidimensional code born of is a analysis of this book. You can immediately recognize some activities that are absolutely familiar to a police environment. You can see smuggling, drug warfare, financial trade, and answer to many short questions. Police contract, main absolute linking in terms of weapon, some criminal activities that are part of the arsenal of the adversary. Now, let's very briefly move to our adversary, that is Russia, and into the diagram that recognize that the operation of doctors Russia is doing right now, so-called non-linear war. This has been. I'd like to stress only one point on this slide. Look at the center of this diagram, and you can immediately recognize what is the proportion between non-military and military actors in and to. You can see the rate of military expanding the problem from the pure. Couple of additional words about the nonlinear effects. What I stressed in the slide is unpredictable. In my previous professional life, I spent almost 20 years making predictions in the military environment. And I personally experienced how it's more difficult nowadays to make a prediction. Then unpredictable probably is the code word of a modern military campaign. I just remind that just 2 days before was invaded was still a majority was going. Briefly mentioned before, what's the difference between then and now? Well, cyber domain. I will be briefly introducing this issue, then deserves clearly a dedicated discussion. But as you can see, this is the changing factor in hybrid compared to the past. Is a key factor that is giving a totally new dimension in time and space. Then, for instance, thinking only in terms, going to the police domain, thinking only in terms of cybercrime is absolutely limiting the problem. We clearly expand our cyberspace in related to something familiar to, and hybrid rule of law is becoming one of the instruments in the hands of the adversary. As I mentioned in this slide, there is a constant effort to change the rule of law to the rule by law, and to transfer the legal to something use support by I'm sure right now is more clear from this final slide in introducing the Chinese military doctrine in 2003, and is called three warfares. And you can see there the three warfares is the warfare that to transform the law and to law to the international to support a campaign. To conclude, hopefully get you that it is something limited military, something composite, multi-threat with definitely multiple instruments. That's the reason why we do think that stability policing clearly is not the silver bullet defeating the threat, but could be and be a relevant act of government in hybrid. Thank
You can remarks in your presentation, very poignant, very timely. I think we all can, and throughout history, that fit this model. And it's obvious to me that the presence of the hybrid threat on the battlefield presents complications to ground force commanders, and that stability policing, stability general, TV or challenges. It's very, very much these issues. At this time, I'd like to turn it over for a little bit of commander's guidance and maybe some insights on what they would like the working group to do, and then perhaps we could have a couple of questions from the crowd. I'd like to turn it over to Colonel Damasio, please, sir. Do you have anything?
Thank you so much. I mean, although as usual, you are brilliant, I would say. I will address the powers of power, because the perspective in the presentation is limited to power. NATO, but for NATO, the NATO is back to the approach, diplomatic information instrument of power, whilst NATO is pushing through the NATO 2030 report, the New Era report, toward the DMEFIL approach, which includes also the financial intelligence, and the L stands for development. And I'm very glad that the legal of what talking about warfare, which a doctrinal concept yet. I mean, albeit some is against legal targeting, but I will recommend to dwell a little bit on the subject matters in order to come up with some rationale towards the alliance to push for the action of this concept. is a long day for us. Thank you.
General Barbano?
First of all, I commend Colonel Rosa for his very inspiring briefing on the topic. So, the fact that hybrid is to explain intensive approach from different perspective. But talking about police, we have to acknowledge that this component in different situations, from peace operations to effective warfare, is becoming more and more central. Colonel De Magistris already highlighted one aspect of the presentations, very, very illuminating the aspect that the Chinese doctrine considers the legal warfare as one of the three pillars of hybrid warfare. It's important to better the role tasks and perform that can perform conditions. Now, the police is, in a day by day, a more and more central role, for instance, in peace operations, along the full spectrum of peace operations. So not only in the peace, but also in the special political missions of the United States, making things include at least nations in planning for the definitive and of a mission. So to the tasks that so far the police can perform or normally perform when deployed, well, we have very seldom, we had the execution of interim tasks. We had two occasions. The problem of performing police tasks, authorities open a series of questions which juridical systems we have to apply, which procedural, particularly if international forces. And who are the judicial authorities? Who are responsible for granting the respect of rights, of human rights, while performing or implementing these powers, performing investigation and question that we normally, in a situation where, I mean, the threat is asymmetric, the threat includes different ways of importance of intelligence, sharing of intelligence, the sharing of the intelligence, the sharing of the individuals, the buyout active national systems. So the real problem is once we are deployed to contrast and counter organized crime, serious transnational crime, cyber threat, terrorism, and whatever, is to combine the need for effective combat with the rule applied in the respective countries and how to play an effective role, so not only related to training of local police, not only related to support for the reform of security structure, but this I believe is the main. So I pay attention to the working group on these topics. Thank you.
Yeah.
Colonel Gonsalves.
Thank you, Will. First of all, let me congratulate you for the excellent presentation about hybrid warfare and hybrid threats. I should say expert on the subject. Related kind of but even though I'm really interested in some concepts really approached during your presentation by saying that the Article 5 could be claimed among the NATO organization in case of hybrid attacks. But knowing that, according to the treaty, we have to be in a armed how can we say that that should be as armed from the very beginning of the foundation of NATO? The second issue is that I really agree with you because we are talking about the same thing because warfare something that I think agree with you because all the other are the same. So, and I prefer all the instruments of power. And what I would like to ask you is that are we consider that we are in presence of actor? Because to have all the instruments of power, you can identify that power nation group or something like that. And the other hand, regarding the central, it's very easy when you are talking in a conventional war, levels of planning and the levels of decision to identify the main source of strength of each actor. But in hybrid warfare, it's very difficult because, as you said, we can have multiple non-military. The question is that how can we multiple no military, because when you are partaking in a crisis management operation, you should know that you should know very well your adversary and you should know what is the main source of power. So if you are not, if you are talking about no military, power at that center.
Gentlemen, real quick, being time to the auditor not in the working group one would like to add, or any questions that they would like to propose that the group answer this afternoon. I'll open it up very quickly. Okay, we can certainly address things later this afternoon. So I would like to thank, please, with a round of applause. And we will move in where we get to hear from our wonderful colleague, Colonel De Magistris, again, so shortly after his great comments on the previous topic, to talk about the NATO perspective and the strategic concept, stability policing implications, and considerations.
So it doesn't work. Barbano for this opportunity, greeting all our guests, ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues. Today I will take you into the NATO environment. I will we start with the other which the news to set the scene, give everybody an understanding of what is the path that NATO will walk through for the next decade. And then I will decide for the NATO stability is since we studied, I think that is a good reflection. Are not tough, and it will be also something which we have to take all our activity of are in this document. This document sets out all the priority, the core tasks, but what are not the core tasks? Defense and deterrence, crisis prevention and management, cooperative security. In the past, it was slightly different. See, a slightly different approach, I would say more proactive. In the past, it was just collective defense, Article 5, once for all for one. And then it was crisis management. It was not crisis prevention. And the cooperative security stands as it is now. So this statement, we stand together as allies to defend our freedom and contribute to a more peaceful world. In a nutshell, sovereignty, territorial integrity, human rights, international law is a sort of rather than this is self-explanatory. Direct threat to the alliance, one of the P5 members, sir, as you mentioned in your opening remarks. And then China, another challenge. For the first time ever, China is mentioned publicly in a NATO document. This speaks about the environment, the completely changed scenario across for the alliance. And then terrorism, the threat of terrorism to our security. Terrorists ended their net. My question is terrorists with tanks, with armored vehicles, or will it not be not an issue, more a law enforcement related issue? Also in other venues, the kinetic operations are the last resort. First, we must investigate terrorists or terrorist organizations. The flow of money, not follow the money. And then climate change. It is not a question. Now, in the first, we were just about climate change once. Not mistaken, it is quoted 12 times, whilst environmental damage is introduced in the new strategic goal. So it's a defining challenge. This is what they say in the document. Because climate change affects the environment, intensify conflict and competition, and threaten the livelihoods of our. Please remember what 79 conflicts the modern era were conflicts. Know why? Some advertisement from NATO, but the images, all the lines of this video, which shows how, as the alliance, change its posture, as I mentioned, a very proactive fashion to strengthen the defense and deterrence. Deterrence is crucial. We will see also when the document reads about nuclear. Although NATO is against nuclear. So it's not. This world needs a nuclear deterrence. NATO underlines as the supreme guarantee security. Could be a nonsense with the document. A deterrence, a nuclear deterrence, attend. Not all the NATO nations, but some of them do have a very consistent deterrence. Look at this slide. Look at this now. Currently, NATO is capable to deploy up to 40,000 troops with, 150, my mistake, within 15 days. However, according to the new force plan, up to 100,000 personnel within 15 days, more than twofold increase. Within 30 days, the alliance will be capable, we are talking about by the end of next year, 2023, to deploy 200, deploy 200 million. It's a completely a more proactive and higher readiness approach, really with a very short notice, capable to respond to any contingency. Strength. That's myself because the video is not working. Anyway, we'll invest this response to keep most of us in a non-Article 5 crisis response defense. Now the terms changed, and as it changed, crisis prevention and management. So it means also investing in the human capital to respond to any kind of crisis which potentially affect our security. Thank you. So the allies will further develop the ability to support the civilian crisis management. One of the main concerns in Afghanistan was that the military had to take over also the civilians' remit, especially in the security sector reform. This shows how the alliance took stock of this lesson learned over there. And by the way, building on the last 3 decades, including Afghanistan, is one of the main lesson learned tasks coming from this document. And for those who were not involved, let me highlight and praise once again my staff in organizing 2 very big events, one in July and one last Thursday. 2 very big events, one in July and one last Thursday, on stability policy in Afghanistan. The former, "Did NATO Miss an Opportunity?" was the title of our conference. And late last week in Rome, we co-presented the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Action Report, Police in Conflict, 20 years of experience and 20 billion spent over there in police reform. We co-drafted this document with the Special General for Afghanistan Action. So taking stock on our experience, it is a ready document. And then open door policy. NATO is still willing to have new members. So now almost 32, and let's see what happens in the future. For sure, is an historic success. They say that under NATO aegis, there are 1 billion population people. So which means the third core task, security. You might have seen, for those who are not in our center, personnel from NATO and NATO partners, but also other personnel from Istanbul Initiative Cooperation, Mediterranean Dialogue, G5 Sahel. This cooperative security, exporting the NATO model in these countries, in this very remit, and for the specific case is the fight against terrorism, with thanks also to a very welcome grant from the United States Department of State Counterterrorism Bureau grant to the NATO headquarters, which will be for the future. So ties with partners and to further the open door policy in order to reinstate the rule-based international order. And then lastly, as I mentioned, climate change, again quoted once again. NATO is determined to set the gold standard in addressing the security implication of climate change without jeopardizing the effectiveness of the forces. So NATO is still, it is cognizant of the importance of climate change, but they don't want to step back on their primary goal, which is defense and deterrence. So, ending questions on this is just an introduction to the status. We'll dual then the policing implication. Mr. Moderator, wait to go on or wait for some queries about this? Yes, sir. Possiamo cambiare presentazione? This is the stability policing perspective. This is the perspective that I provided with in the NATO stability. Already an internal discussion, which it is not over, so we are still disclosing the disclaimer. Note that this perspective in light of the expertise, and it's with my colleagues. However, it is still under discussion, so we would like to do more on the subject matter because it is crucial to inform all our activities to the NATO strategic concept. Beg your pardon. So, second most important across the alliance, it is the concept, which dates back to 1948. The scenario changes are clear. The 24 February unlawful attack against Ukraine by Russia is a game changer indeed. And in fact, this made the alliance reshuffling completely the strategic concept. The alliance scrambled, they worked night shift to redraft a 16 page document, which is really groundbreaking. There is also, it was already developed by the alliance, the DDA and the SACEUR area of responsibility, SASP. So these are classified documents which already encompass most of the concepts included in this the strategic concept. So we are not anymore at peace. This is clear. The alliance understood, acknowledged the fact that the Atlantic area is not at peace at all. And the defense and deterrence, Article 5 operation, one for all for one. But notwithstanding this, NATO is still taking under great consideration both non-Article 5 operations, from the crisis response operation to crisis prevention and management, more proactive, and security, cooperative security. So the new environment, the new scenario, competition, instability. Pervasive instability is something which is brought about several times. Instability is fought by stability. I think that it makes sense for us. And the recurrent shocks to the alliance. So, as Colosa mentioned, the centers of gravity is focused on collective defense. This is the center of gravity of 300, which means that also to stability in order to leave behind long-term peace and stability and development. And then please bear in mind that the nuclear capability is really the main deterrence. It's a very strong statement, unfortunately. Differences between 12 years ago and late June. As you can see, the court, as I mentioned, we can see a robust, resilient, and integrated command structure should be included permanently, both in the NATO command structure, in each layer, in order to ensure, so I look at my friend Franz from SHAPE Provost Marshal, no, the requested readiness and responsiveness to any requirement. We cannot provide ad hoc solution. It is to be given a structured solution to our commanders. Otherwise, it will be always an impromptu solution, which is not the best one, I will say. And the stability policing has been around, at least de facto, since 6 August 1996, at least. And then the integration. And then the integration of military and military tools. So, and here I praise the doctrine branch of the center for their continued efforts. The Alliance constantly reviews. There are really numerous publications. How many to be reviewed and to be provided with our insight? Do you remember by heart the number? Hundreds? Okay. 40? Perfect. So please note that in 2020, we reviewed and provided inputs on stability policing relevant inputs to 13 different publications. Allied joint the following year, this year there are 13 new publications. And we provide numerous input to NATO with evidence, technical exploitation, to several concepts, counter-terrorism. Imagine that in the past, NATO, in the counter-terrorism, strategic considered police, the law enforcement remit, to have, weird enough, they were not thinking about a huge elephant in the room. And they were thinking about just delivering kinetic operations in order to fight terrorism. And then maritime security. I'm with double glasses, so I cannot see whether where is Panos? Panos, are you here? No. But we have Giovanni from the Italian Navy. Maritime security is important, and we have been having discussion stuff. Marty Grasshoff and the deputy Bastilar. We have been discussing about the role that stability policing can play at sea. Okay. 3D at okay. 3D at tool, a difficult tool. Then exercises. If we are not relevant in exercises, we will not be relevant in operations. We must first exercise, develop lessons, identify lessons, then develop lesson learned, feed the doctrinal development, the concept development, and then train and then exercise again to be relevant in operations. And we have to do it since the beginning of any exercise. Planning. We must, stability policing consideration are to be included since the beginning of any operation. Again, if we want to be relevant. And it is indeed still the interoperability epitome, also in the interoperability epitome, also in the only theater of operation which still sees a multinational specialized unit, namely Kosovo. Capacity building and assistance. This is something which we have been doing also at the center. It's done also in the theaters of operations, and extending NATO mission to 20 minutes are over. Okay, extending NATO mission to Iraq is foreseeing a more vigorous footprint capacity. The police perspective, albeit there are some political issues over there because political turmoil is not jeopardizing, is stalling. But still, what we do here, and please note that on the 11th of November, we will have the Assistant Secretary General for Emerging Security Challenges Division from NATO and the U.S. Special Envoy for the Coalition Against ISIS or Daesh here attended our Battlefield Evidence Institutional level course to mark the importance of this course in the fight against terrorism towards the countries which are getting benefit from our training. Already mentioned, but I will repeat, comes from the Istanbul Initiative Corporation, military ISIL. It's important security building, also for network our training. And then human security, children are conflict, building integrity, trafficking human beings, the weaponization of migrants, which was also mentioned by the Chinese, but also in the Primakov or the Rasimov doctrine, depends from the perspective it is political or military, no? Primakov was the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, no, Minister of Defense in Russia. Weaponization of magazines, human security, NATO, human address, and peace and security. It's not just just sexy talking. For stability policing in NATO, but I trust across all the international organizations which we represent here, stability policing is to focus on both the protection of civilians, upholding human rights, and the law and order, the primacy of the law. No. Please, okay, Bosnia, Ukraine, Georgia, they do deserve a specific focus from the alliance for what regards our endeavor to provide them with our capacity building, skills. These are, I mean, are highlighted by strategic concept. By the same token, they are to be our European Union voted right in the strategic concept, which is something only twice in the European strategic compass. NATO is quoted 28 times. So this speaks volumes about the need to integrate the two huge organizations. But by the same token, don't forget also United Nations. It is more critical because there are also our adversaries in the NATO, in the United Nations. However, the United Nations policy develop important strategic guidance framework on police, which is part. It is the overarching doctrine for the activities on the of the Stability Policy Center of Excellence, NATO Stability Policy. So the threat, Russian Federation, it was just a potential strategic partnership. It changes a little bit. Most significant direct threat. Terrorism now is the most direct asymmetric threat. It is lethal. People Republic of China is a security challenge. What a euphemism. Cyberspace, space, the new domains. We are also talking about the police domain, but is something which is still under development. But could be our dream. Emerging disruptive technologies. They could have had impact on operations. Look at now. Our opportunities discuss internally about this, but also high level of risks, because we can attack and they can't. You will see. Remember, please, the attack that was launched against Albania 3 months ago, or less. They were put on their knees just through cyber attacks. Climate change, it is indeed a challenge. And the conference that it was by the COESPU, NATO is to be more proactive. This was my point, which I highlighted during the conference, when we received just an information relevant to the attitude of NATO in order to preserve the environment. No, we must fight any threat to the environment. The climate damage could become also a war crime, as it happens with cultural property protection, which is another of the topics of the human security I forgot to mention before. But it is our heart, so because everybody knows that we do our best also on this remit. Russia, They use hybrid methods, and this may have an impact on our activities. Terrorism, can we fight them? Yes, indeed, we can. Fragility and instability, North Africa, Middle East, and Sahel. We are doing a lot in the center. We are being cooperated with Strategic South Hub, which is an institution present to Joint Force Command NATO. Their own remit, they do focus on the south flank. They gather information. They say that they don't gather intelligence, but they gather a lot of information, and they cooperate a lot. They launch numerous projects with them. Again, other threat, pervasive instability, results in violence against civilians, sexual violence, attack against cultural property, environmental damage, human trafficking, irregular migration. I mentioned all of them before. Human security, it is our core business, because our center of gravity for stability policing in NATO is the protection of civilians. And I'm drawing to a conclusion. Please bear with me a couple of minutes more. The technology are critical in the three core tasks, and there are numerous topics which may affect them. Technology, innovation, climate change, which is a threat multiplier, and again, human security, women, peace, and security. It is a refrain for us because we have to focus on the population when we are deployed. Other key issues, the 360-degree approach, it is to characterize collective defense. The same applies to human rights. These are NATO common values. Resilience, Article 3 of the NATO Treaty. The capacity to react, not only absorb, react to a shock, an attack. And the first line of defense for each NATO nation, so for a sovereign country, is law enforcement. Don't forget it. Because when we talk about, we implement policing in fragile state, or we implement Article 5 deploying in a sovereign country. But when it is to affect a sovereign, law enforcement is the primary actor in resilience. Climate change, hybrid once again, women, peace, and security. These are the key issues. So, drawing to an end, these are the new terms were introduced in NATO Strategy 2022. So these are, we have to acquaint terms for the next decade. For what concerns us, I would say, apart from the 360-degree approach, which encompasses the DMEFIL instrument of power implementation, where L again stands for law enforcement, let me quote once again: climate change, cultural property, environmental damage, cultural property, environmental damage equal war crimes, not always, but sometimes. Human security, multi-domain operations, and this being back to the discussion of war. It is not only one domain. NATO identified domains: land, sea, air, space, and cyber. And now it is implementing a multi-domain approach to merge all these domains as one battlefield. And so that's it to conclude my briefing. New thresholds of Article 5. The Article 5 perimeter, is changing, or it's be better identified. Hybrid, cyber, space. Hopefully they will not. That concludes my briefing.
Thank you, Colonel DeMagistris, for a very thorough briefing on NATO and their strategic perspective. I think for the purpose of time, I believe we're going to stop session 2 for now, take our family photo and coffee break, important comfort break, and we'll return at 11:15, and we'll pick up on the second part of session 2. And I will cede some of my administrative time at the end in hopes that we can not interrupt lunch too much. So with that, sir, did you have anything you wanted to say before we break for the picture?
No, thank you. I would recommend to move forward, so we try to reach our timetable.
Yes, sir.
My comments at the end of the entire session of session 2. Thank you.
All right, real quick, I want to know from my weatherman, what is the plan for the picture? Are we doing it inside, outside? Outside? Nice. Okay, everyone, if you could assemble outside in front of the monument, we will take the family photo, then we'll drink some coffee. Thank you.
Spento, spento. Spento, spento.
think it's working. Esteemed Commander, esteemed colleagues, esteemed office, my name is Tatu Sebastian, head of Intel Division in EGF, representing EGF today in order to present you about Strategic Compass. It's a new strategy in Europe. I will try to keep it. I will ask for your remarks at the end of the presentation. I'll accept all the critics. I'm not an expert, like as a disclaimer, actually. So here we go. The Strategic Compass. What I want to present you today is that it's a short history of the Strategic Compass, some objectives, the main pillars of this strategy, and a short conclusion about it. I think it's no. I know. Slide. So this will, okay. All right. I think it's working now. So, as I told you, a short history. The first strategy actually has been adopted in 2003 by the European Union. Was the first document in charge to regulate all the security and defense challenges in Europe. And in 2016, the High Representative of the European Union, Ms. Federica Mogherini, she presented the global strategy for the European Union's foreign policy. In 2019, as you can see, the new representative, Joseph Borrell, insisted to continue the strategy and to create another one with another view, another perspective. As a recommendation from the side of Germany, in the same year, the idea, they came up with the idea of creating a compass strategy, a new term, a new concept. In March 2022, all 27 EU member states, they decided to have this strategy and to create it and to implement it. It was presented in the Security Council on 25th of March 2022, and now it's ongoing actually. So it's the process of implementation. It's ongoing. As the previous speakers already spoke about it, the Europe is surrounded actually by a huge controversial and tensions and war. Of course, it covers the entire borders of Europe, from the Western Balkans to Africa, from Asia to the Middle East, and it comes with a lot of threats, a lot of threats, like as you mentioned before, like cyber attacks and terrorism and all kind of stuff, with challenges like the climate challenges, which is a priority for the European Union. And nevertheless, some implications in terms of cooperation, in terms of autonomous strategy, in terms of resilience, and so on. The main objective of this strategy is to guide the necessary development of European Union to this for our security and defense agenda for the next decade. Actually, the deadline is in 2030. On the other side, on another point of view, it includes also to improve the ability of the European Union to act and to decide in crisis, and in order to define its citizens and the Union, to make the EU stronger and to contribute to international peace, especially in this scenario, in this sexual scenario, the war at our borders. How can we do this? The strategy, it's willing to highlight some, let's say, dimensions, some instruments by providing a shared assessment of our threats, of our challenges and our implications. It's what I mentioned before. To bring greater coherence to our actions, especially on the actions that are underway right now in Europe and abroad. And another perspective is to set new ways, new means, and new instruments to improve our collective ability to defend the security and our citizens. And of course, specifying clear targets and milestones for the future in order to measure the progress in terms of accountability. In order to achieve these goals, the strategy is working on 4 dimensions. It means in crisis management, partnership, resilience, and capability development. I'm not going to develop each term right now because it has been already developed on previous occasions. And I'll pass to the next slide, which actually is the core of this strategy. I mean, the main pillars of the strategy. What we have to know is that this Compass strategy covers all aspects of the security and defense policy, and it's all structured around these 4 baskets, 4 pillars: act, secure, invest, and partnership actually. I will start by presenting a couple of ideas about each of them in the following slides. The first and the main important, I think, is how to act. How to act rapidly, how to act robustly whenever a crisis erupts, even if we are doing alone or with our partners from Europe and from abroad. One of the ideas, the first one, is to reinforce the civilian military CSDP, missions operation, by promoting a more flexible decision-making process and ensuring greater financial solidarity. Secondly, we have to develop, and this is the proposal of the European Union, to develop a rapid deployment capacity. I think it's something similar with NATO goals. We must be able to deploy up to 5,000 troops into non-permissive environments for different types of crises. On the other hand, another goal is to deploy 200 experts within 30 days in this type of crisis in the world. The third vector is to strengthen the command and control structures and increase the cooperation to developing actually the military mobility on regular life exercises. And for this, I think you're sharing my idea, is that we have to work together in order to have this kind of exercises, in order to develop our capacities of working, of reacting, and on intervening in the most critical situation around Europe. To secure, it's another term that is used by the stability policy, by the strategic compass. Has been used before, but probably they didn't give it such a huge importance like now. And it's one of the main goals as well. In terms of security, we have to boost our intelligence capacities, and by creating new framework, new structures like the one that you're seeing on the slide. You are seeing intelligence and analysis capacity framework. Create a new hybrid toolbox. I don't want to develop this subject because it has been already developed. And develop our capacity of cyber defense by engaging cyber defense policy in order to strengthen our actions. Of course, 3-dimensional actions: maritime, air, and space domains. And the list can continue with other suggestions on this topic. The third one is to invest. It means spending money. I don't know if this is one of the most important pillars or the last one, but for sure we need to invest and spend more money in defense. It means to develop our capabilities and our capacities accordingly to the threats and to the actual situations for the time being. We need to seek for common solutions and develop necessary strategic enablers for the missions and operations. Of course, high-end naval platforms, future combat air systems, space-based capabilities, main battle tanks. I know that's a strange subject or probably something new, or I don't know, but I think it's very important to follow up this suggestion, this recommendation, and to determine the member states to follow up this idea. It's up to them finally. Of course, one of the another point of view is to develop the cutting-edge military capabilities. If we are looking through our capacity and our capability, we notice that some of the countries probably they don't have the necessary power, the necessary capabilities to be aligned actually with the rest of Europe. So all these gaps has to be filled. This recommendation, this objective has to be done by the coordination of the European Defence Agency, and even to create a new defense innovation hub, which is it's something new for Europe. The fourth one and the last one is the partnership, having partners, and it not mean I don't mean to have only the regular partners, the partners that are working with us actually, like NATO and UN and so on, but here we must include as well the Organization for Security and in Europe, and the African Union as well, and the Association of Southeastern African Nations, which is very important because could be a very important partner, and it is. And we have to continue as well the partnership with our bilateral partners, United States, Norway, Canada, or UK, and why not Japan. One of the main ideas here is also to develop a new security and defense partnership forum to make work closely and efficiently with the partners to address common challenges and so on. I'm not saying that for the fourth topic related to NATO means that we have to develop ourselves in order to eliminate NATO. No, not at all. It means to strengthen the connection and our cooperation with NATO in order to find common goals and to follow up common procedures in order to determine, to enhance the security of and defense of our citizens and our union. Those are the four main goals of the strategy. Actually, as I told you, is the core of the strategy. And because the time is not allowing me to continue more, I just put it here, a very short presentation, a very short figure of those four pillars who has to be implemented by the end of this decade, by the end of 2030. As a conclusion, because my presentation is about to end, we are preparing ourselves for being a little bit more autonomous. It doesn't mean that we have to work alone, but I think we need to improve our capacity, our European Union capacity, our individual capacity of working. So that is why the European Union has to shoulder a greater share of responsibility for its own security. I think it will be a huge release for the United States and for NATO as well to have a very good partner in this, a very capable partner in this, let's say, fight, in this action against the threat. The strategic compass, finally, it's a guide for action, as Mr. Joseph Borrell, the High Representative of Foreign Affairs and Security in Brussels, said. It will help us to face our security responsibilities in front of our citizens and the rest of the world. From my side, this is all. I know that it was very short, but as I told you before, the time is important. So I'm please address questions, and I'm trying to answer to you as good as I can, because I'm not. I told you I'm not a very good expert in European Union strategies and so on. Thank you for your attention. And
Thank you, Sebastian.
thank you. Thank you, John.
Okay, I think we're going to hold comments until the final
All right.
presenter for the session
Yeah.
2. Thanks, Sebastian. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you all.
Lieutenant Colonel Bizotto from COESPU will present on the environmental perspective, near and dear to many of our hearts.
Because of time constraint, I try to be brief but effective. Stability policing, the environmental perspective. Where is the link between the concept of stability policing and the environment? Is there an environmental perspective from which to look at the stabilization process in a country? At the very beginning, I want to share with you some data elaborated in the document Post-Conflict Peace Building and Natural Resource Management by the UN Environment Agency. More than 60% of livelihoods in conflict-affected countries depend on natural resources. Resource-related conflicts are more likely to relapse and do so twice as quickly. More than 50% of the post-conflict countries' export revenues come from natural resources. And more than 50% of ex-combatants return to agriculture, requiring access to secure land tenure. There is, I'd like to point out, as clearly as possible, environmental issues have always also law enforcement requirements. If you do not address these policy needs, your stabilization action will not succeed completely. And then, in the aftermath of conflicts, one of the few assets held by post-conflict countries are natural resources. How governments use these assets can fundamentally alter the course of peace building and recovery. The challenge lies in converting the revenues derived from natural resource extraction into livelihoods, jobs, infrastructure, and the basic services needed to consolidate and sustain peace. Effective and equitable management of natural resources is essential to post-conflict countries by providing peace development, tackle the peace process while also kickstarting economic growth. But this process is done without triggering new conflicts, fueling corruption, financing terrorism or not stated armed groups, or impacting the environment. As well reported also in an article published in COESPU magazine, written by Stefano Bergonzini. I thank you. Warrant Officer in NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence. There is a host of evidence linking crimes against the environment to organized criminal groups. Also, other irregular actors in fragile states may take advantage from the host nation government's reduced law enforcement action, capabilities, and capacity, not only to expand their illegal activities, but also to spoil any stabilization, peace, or development process. As such, all actors become stability policing, which, when deployed, support stability before, during, and after crisis or conflicts, to foster peace, and contribute to creating the condition for social, cultural, and economic improvement. But at least we are talking about the correct premise. Addressing natural resources as a part of a post-conflict peace building is thus mandatory in order to avoid the creation of new form of grievance and thus achieve a peace and resilient to conflict relapse. In fact, through both its mission of reinforcement or strengthening and replacement and substitution, can contribute to improve the approach to the environment. Investigating crimes against the environment, such as trafficking in waste or illegal logging, water pollution, and illicit air emission, all help preserving our habitat. At the same time, it is necessary to conduct build within the creating or developing a law enforcement performance, institutional knowledge, and governance in its wider acceptation. This should include the creation of a specialized environmental protection law enforcement assist, and through the reform of the penal code to encompass provisions protecting the environment. For all the international organizations involved in peace mission, the environmental aspect must become an integral part of the process for pacification, for peace. A doctrinal evolution that we have witnessed in the last decade. Now we need to implement these encouraging guidelines in operation, also through the deployment of stability policing assets. Any field mission, any site in a third country, has to consider the environmental perspective for all the activity and for all the personnel. These include also stability policies practitioners. At the very beginning, we have to consider to improve environmental performance inside the mission process from phase until its closure. It is clear how necessary it is to integrate each environmental assessment from the planning stage to the closure of the mission's action field. The sooner some strategic and sensitive aspects are taken into account, the more the operational phase of the mission itself is facilitated. In April of this year, the new environmental policy for field-based and special political mission was published by UNDPO, proving that environmental consideration and impact assessment are to be applied to every activity, on-site and off-site. The point of view of comprehending any possible activity. It's some more principle borrowed directly from the Environmental Policy Secretariat, which is some thought strategies that must be implemented in every field and in every United Nations mission site. The first principle, stewardship of the environment, restart from the cardinal principle, do no harm. It in seek to do no harm, thus placing man and communities at the same level as the environment, therefore deserving of the same. That requires the need to have references to define a when for environmental performance. The do no harm principle is enhanced by proactive promotion, a positive contribution to the environment. It tries to maximize the opportunities to create a positive impacts and at the same time mitigate and minimize the negative ones. United environmental communities can be greatly supported by community policing activities in which the local populace and stakeholders are asked to actively participate in setting targets and contributed to enforcement, including through information sharing. The second principle, efficiency in research and operation, focuses attention on the conservation of natural resources and on the optimization of consumption due to sustainability. It deals with the very delicate issues of waste and the zero waste objective. The best waste is that which is not produced. Investigating the trafficking of waste and enforcing laws, including to counter illicit overusage of resources, represent two aspects in which stability policing can support. The third principle reminds us that one reach allows to no longer the aspects of truth and so on. We talk continuous improvement because environmental performance always tends to excellent results. This principle requires sustainable management to be an integral part of the mission operability and its deployment phase, involving more and more sectors within an ever-growing environmental management system. The sharing of each progress then allows at the organization level to disseminate the result achieved by favoring their application in any other site or field, or monitoring crimes attacking and endangering the environment allows it to better comprehend and assess the overall environmental performance. Stakeholder engagement at all levels is another new one and strategic principle. Since the Rio de Janeiro +20 conference 10 years ago, it has been clear that it's necessary to involve every stakeholder to maximize every effort in the environmental field. Why should law enforcement and stability policing not be among these stakeholders? Both bring very specific important contributions no other can offer. And every effort of participation, awareness and training is sharing of the results of environments as well. The last of this new vision is reserved for adaptability and resilience. If before it was evident that the mitigation of impacts was the only way forward, now we have an attitude typical of the natural world, which adapts to change and seeks the best, more resilient solution that allows for its own conservation. On this side, there is a great effort to share nature-based solutions, projects and programs to protect, sustainably manage, or restore natural ecosystems that address societal challenges such as climate change, human health, food and water security, and disaster risk reduction effectively and adaptively, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. Stability policing is a key actor in human security, environmental protection, and should be involved in fostering resilience-seeking projects and even environmental protection and management. Understanding that climate change and the reduction of the availability of natural resources is a problem that can no longer be referred and represent a risk for the humankind, for the entire humankind, it's necessary to intervene with the best management, combining environmental sustainability with the maximum possible expression of resilience, especially in a destabilized country. In October, this month, Gabon, with the Security Council presidency, is a high-level debate on strengthening the fight against the financing of armed and terrorists through the illicit trafficking of natural resources. Illicit trafficking of natural resources by armed groups and terrorists has received growing attention from the Security Council in recent years. For example, Resolution 2195, which addressed the role of transnational crime in supporting terrorism, expressed concern that the terrorists benefit from the illicit trade in natural resources, including gold and other precious metals and stones, minerals, charcoal, and oil. In Spain, the 3462 on combating financing of terror noted with great concern that the terrorist groups raise funds through the exploitation of natural resources. The Council has also considered the misuse of natural resources while discussing conflict prevention and the relationship between security and development. Illicit trafficking of natural resources by armed groups is an important issue in several files of the Council's agenda for the region, for example, for Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, as well as for Mali. The Council is determined how to counter the financing of armed groups and terrorists through illicit trafficking in natural resources. One option for Council is to consider whether there is a need to update the listing criteria for sanctioned regimes in which illicit trafficking of natural resources is an issue. The Council could, for example, choose the listing criterion that applies support to armed groups through natural resources sanctioned regimes that do not currently have such regime. could also consider whether existing listing criteria relating to illicit trafficking of natural resources are fit for purpose and function as intended. I want to conclude with a famous quote from John Muir, a famous American glaciologist, who said, "Take anything and find out that it's tied to everything else in the universe." We need to refine our ability to do this connection, primarily as trainers, correctly in class, in compliance with overall. The next to create damage to the environment, but it is necessary to operate everyone, experts and non-experts, civilians, military personnel and police personnel, as protagonists for a more sustainable mission to guarantee better results for the pacification process. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina, for that presentation. Environment. Our other presenters in session 2. Echo here. Not sure. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Gonsalves. Had some leadership remarks to the three briefings.
I will not say them. If you mind, I will choose one. And one is was presented by you, and I would like to explain a little of the process related with the of the contract. It started in a couple of years ago, and it was supposed, and at that time, the discussion within the European Union, it was the strategic autonomy, as the United States were shifting the pivot to the Pacific. So the European Union starts to realize that they should care a little bit more about their own defense. Sebastian said the compass, the strategic compass, was approved in March 22. That since February, so it seems right now that the United States are also shifting again the pivot to Europe, because the main problem is in Europe. And the main issue that is related with this compass is that the entity who is responsible for providing the defense to the European Union countries, as we have an alliance, NATO, that is from the very beginning dedicated to that, and has most of the that are belong to NATO are also belonging to a strategic plan that is related with. We are supposed to have our own countries investing a little bit more in the defense, but we also have NATO claiming for the same investment. So it's a little bit tricky right now. The relationship between the NATO strategic compass from the European Union. So even though I think this really addressed some important issues regarding the security and defense within the European Union. And my guidance for the workshop in the afternoon is to have the group thinking about we police tasks provider in crisis we have a real role in this new strategic compass, taking into consideration that this compass also have and also identify the need of rapid deployment to face any kind of threat in the crisis. So the question is, how can we, the security providers with the all of functions, can we step in this process rapidly for the ones that are responsible for the defense? I think that the ones that I'm referring to are the armed forces. How can we step a little bit further on this strategic compass?
Sir, do you have anything?
Actually, my guidance job is by Coronel Gonçalves, but from a different preconditions. The four presentations we received have shown once again how the threat nowadays is more complex, is including different and the different tools to face not only military but also composite threats and also political aspects. But they are still too much, excluding the presentation on the environment, they are too much military centered. So we can read there is a need integrated comprehensive approach and integrated planning and whatever. In the reality, everything is more, and this is very, very apparent, very evident with the strategic compass, which is very much military oriented. The police is still too in the civilian aspect of crisis management. So in line with the guidance already given by Coronel Gonçalves, my suggestion is to focus on how the police, the stability policing, can play a more active role in all the phases of a crisis, participating in the early war capacity, in the deterrence, in the planning contingency, in all the aspects of defensive strategy, whatever it is in NATO, in European Union, or in other contexts. And of course, with the capacity to cope with the full spectrum of police capacities, with a particular emphasis also on the aspects related to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Colonel De Magistris, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you. I have the same concern of General Barbano. This doesn't address policing. Going through the four pillars, I address the subject matter to the center on early last April, and going through the pillar ACT, I couldn't find anything related to policing, but be ready to deploy 200 fully equipped CDSP, civilian common defense security policy experts within 30 days, 200, which is. And what also struck me was the fact that the European Union is focusing on large sizes only. Other three what about? And so I'm really curious to know from our brothers in arms at Eurogen 4, to know which are the ability policing or law enforcement implications on this. Because it seems that, terrorism is a key word that I couldn't find in the document itself, and it is to be addressed as well. We could also initiate an exercise to promote the need to have law enforcement related issues better addressed in the subject matter. I cannot say the same on NATO because NATO is addressing all the spoilers of the peace process. I would say that the viewpoint of the European Union is slightly different. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for that. Is there anything from the crowd, the audience, that would like to make a note for the working group? Silence as no. All right, we're going to roll right into next presentations. This is the session number 3, Enhancing Cooperation in the Trilateral Framework, where we will have a presentation on media engagement by Major DeAngelis, the Public Affairs Officer, and he will be followed by Lieutenant Colonel Manacorda on prudent planning and kind of cover the calendar. So without further ado, please, the floor is yours.
Brigadier General, officers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a huge privilege to me to address a brief speech concerning media engagement today in the framework of the Trilateral Stability Policing Day. In the 52 before Christ, the then General Gaius Julius Caesar, in command of 10 legions composed of 50,000 Romans, in the fierce battle of Alesia, definitely defeated 300,000 Gauls led by the Cingetorigi. Caesar could not have imagined that much more deadly weapons would have replaced his invincible weapons, such as catapults, ballistas, and scorpions. In 1931, General Douglas MacArthur could not have imagined many of the forms of warfare that would be used just a few years later during World War II. He understood, however, that changes in methods and weapons the nature of conflict. Just as changed the nature of conflict, so did the telegraph, radio, television, and eventually the internet. The advances today in the information world, specifically with the advent of social media and new media, may prove as profound as any of these inventions. In recent years, the political dynamic has evolved and the operational environment has changed. Public expectation regarding timeliness, accuracy, and type of information that should be available, fueled by a 24/7 global media industry, and the rapid growth of the use of the internet and social media have changed dramatically, and the military world to adapt promptly to respond appropriately. Effective public affairs support to field and permanent HQ commanders is an intelligent response and requires that the function be properly resourced fully into decision-making process for military operations, policy development, program design, and service delivery, including planning and conducting external and internal communication and community relations. The mission of any public affairs officers is to support commanders by communicating accurate information in a timely manner to audiences to improve public awareness and understanding of the military aspects of the organization's role, aims, operations, missions, activities, and issues, thereby enhancing organization. It can be allied, internal, regional, local, or internal, depending on the issue of the activity. Providing accurate information in a timely manner is critical to functional and organizational credibility with publics and media, and helps deter adversary propaganda in 24/7 media environment. The correct media dissemination is often directly proportional to the timeliness and accuracy of the public affairs effort or response. Same information delivered quickly can have a qualitatively different effect than the same information delivered a day later or even an hour later. Protecting our organizations against criticism or embarrassment must be our priority. Even every military organization must confront with the two crucial aspects of communication, internal and external communication. Media relations activities are designed to provide through all mass communication means to the military organization audience. Commanders and staffs, through their public affairs officers, should be prepared to, for example, respond to media inquiries, issue statements, conduct briefings and interviews, arrange for access to permanent and operational units, and distribute information including imagery, as all means to develop relations with the supplier and consumers of news. Outreach are aimed at fostering strategic relations with the experts who have an interest in military issues and activities, such as academia, military associations, and other non-news media entities. They are often invited to comment and as unbiased subject matter experts in the field of security and defense policy, and more specifically on the military administration policies, decisions, and actions, and can therefore provide a sustainable force multiplier effect. Communications must be clear. Both external and internal communications are risks devastating. Internal communications facilitate communication within military organizations, and is vital to be clear as possible in order to avoid miscomprehensions that may imply direct consequences. The example I brought to your attention highlights what I'm saying. Very famous was, in fact, that the misinterpretation costed the loss of a crucial battle of an order given by a Confederate General Robert Lieutenant General Richard Ewell to attack cemetery if practicable. Think the enemy position was too strong, it attack. That created one of the emotions of Gettysburg, echoed down the years. Challenges that armed forces and police organizations now face is to develop strategies that recognize the nature of warfare resulting from social media. The effective use of social media may have the potential to help the armed forces and police organizations better understand the environment they operate. Social media may allow more agile use of information in support of operations. It may be harnessed to achieve unity of effort with partners in conflict. Finding clever and innovative ways to help achieve unity effort with partnering with the desired ends may be the key to success in a continuously evolving social media environment. Social media are changing the way that information is passed across societies and around the world. The rapid spread of blogs, social networking sites, and media sharing technology, aided by the proliferation of mobile technology, is also changing the conditions in which military organizations conduct their operations. The speed and transparency of information have increased dramatically. Even events that only a few years ago could have remained state secrets indefinitely are being reported around the world in minutes. The traditional roles of the media are changing with the ubiquitous nature of data transmitting technology. With phones can transmit to the world unfiltered in the time it takes to make a call. They can use social networks to mobilize groups in support of a cause without having to expose themselves to the risks and costs formally associated with activism. In response, governments and institutions can do little to effectively stop it. In 2010, videos of the Tunisian protests were broadcasted through Facebook and Twitter. The videos spread the internet virally, quickly gaining the attention of international and viewers. Discussions about the incidents on Twitter became one of the most viewed topics worldwide by the end of the day. Whatever next reveals the potential power of social media. Within hours, several versions of the videos were posted on the YouTube and linked to the various other websites. This case demonstrates that social media are not easily contained. The outcome of those videos that went viral was the ignition of the crowds at the start of the Arab Spring. Around the world are becoming tools for political and social activism. If military leaders do not fully understand these tools, they may have a significant impact on the nature of future conflicts. The military organizations can either engage in the social media environment seriously or cede this ground to the enemy. The development of strategies to account for the impact of social media will be one of the keys to success in modern times and in future. How can we have an effective community? The military leadership should have in mind when determining that strategy is a better understanding of the environment or better situational awareness through an effective use of social media. By systematically observing the online community, we should be able to develop an ongoing understanding of the society in which we live in, as well as its concerns and interests, as well as to identify emerging trends and patterns. Blogs and social networking sites could provide insight to any society where there is a significant online community, particularly in societies with a young population. Maintaining a social presence to understand potential threats and emerging trends. The online community can provide a good indicator of prevailing moods and emerging issues. Many of the vocal opposition groups will likely use social media to air grievances publicly. An effective, solid and constant online social media presence can be an integral part of the understanding the issues and attitudes in a neighborhood or community. An online presence can play a major role in living among the people in a society that has a significant online community. Social media will certainly not can use. They could let us have the better situational awareness of these environments. A desirable end media in any theater of operations may be to assist the commanders in providing better, more agile, and more credible public information with both strategic communication and local tactical information. With an aggressive online presence, our commanders can be better prepared to counter false and negative reporting as events occur. They can better interdict and react to bad news if they are already engaged and understand the way reporting in the area of responsibilities will proceed as events occur. Finally, by being commanders can avoid letting enemies set the agenda by being there first with the truth. To win the information challenge, the organization must use schemes and methods. The first way is that social media use must be in the form of a commander's social media program. That is to say, social media should have the support and interest of the commander and key members of his staff and should be formalized into a program with responsibilities assigned to members of the commander's staff. Social media are assets, not threats. A proactive engagement with social media incorporated into the commander's operational planning will likely provide the best results. To take advantage of social media is to organize the social media program for success. And the best way should be to have a strategic communication director with a small coordinating staff with a support of a team with a dedicated social media monitoring team to act as the eyes and ears of the team. Team members may be viewed as a social scouts, observing, monitoring, and collecting information of the community. The monitoring team represents a systematic way to take advantage of the content and trends in social media. Without a systematic approach, there may be a little inaccurate observations and drawing the correct conclusions from the online traffic. Since speed and agility are key elements of a successful social media strategy, the way to enhance success in a strategy is to enact policies to allow the social media campaign to be agile. Some approval chains may inhibit the ability of the operators to achieve results. We must keep in mind that in an hypothetical conflict, the enemy will not be constrained from posting information to the internet by a cumbersome approval process, and thus has the ability to very quickly. Perhaps the best approach is to allow for centralized planning and decentralized execution. Social media and new media are changing the ways information moves around the world. Speed and transparency of information having the roles of traditional and new media are changing, and social networking tools allows collaboration as never seen before. There will be no doubt be changes to the nature of conflicts as a result. A key to successfully adapting to the changes will be the commander's ability to develop strategies that take advantage of the changes and deny the enemy exclusive right to do the same. We must defend the reputation of our organizations through changes and fight false news. An innovative strategy that incorporates the lessons already learned in the social media environment with the military organization to improve their understanding the environment, communicate more effectively, and generate unity and effort. In a particular hub like ours, if we want to improve the corporate identity of the stability policing hub, we need to focus on the relevance of this crucial issue. Why building a corporate identity? How to build a corporate identity? What are the elements of a corporate identity? These questions will be taken into the working group and explored by experts for careful analysis. The outcome during the afternoon session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angeles. I think we're going to presenter, Lieutenant Colonel Manacorda, who will present on prudent planning. And I would just ask that you acknowledge the time. Sorry for...
Sir, distinguished officer, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everyone. I'm Lieutenant Colonel. Can you show my presentation, please? Okay. I'm the Lieutenant Colonel Ubaldo Manacorda, Head of Educational Evaluation and Study Office at the COESPU. Today, I'm in charge to speak about prudent planning. Go on. So, I divided the exposition into 4 main bullets. Part 1, identification of resources to be managed. Point 2, allocation of resources with dutiful mention of our technical agreement. Part 3, line of work to optimize the use of human resources for working tools that allow judicious planning and timely intervention in the course of work to reshape arrangement in the face of changing scenario. As envisaged in my presentation, I will proceed from general to detail. Please go on. So, COESPU resource. For the time, I go in the nutshell of the idea of human resource. Inside at the COESPU, we have lecturers, coordinated by a dean, and deal with specific subjects. To give a lecture subjects outside the competence of the center, also the support provided from other command of the Carabinieri Corps. Third level, we have at the same time in the training department some instructor. We go very fast in the presentation of training area and classroom. Training area, I only a recap. We have indoor training area, polygon, shooting simulator, gymnasium, brave box, etc., and long area training area. But we have also classroom also equipped for VTC action, course activity to be conducted simultaneously. We join the point number D. Better, in my opinion, is the logistic support. Why this? Because behind we have people. So better to say logistic support. Here I want to mention the totality of human resource we cooperate in the operation of the compound. Also, civilian work to the means as well employee of civilian company. The access of the activity conducted here at the compound is also made possible thanks to the silent work of these people. So, in one holistic vision of the prudent planning, is important to put inside this idea, because one is the first idea I share with the working group. What happens if the civilian work can have a planning is necessary to okay. After identifying the one overview of the resource, we now identify commitments that we define the allocation of our resource. So the point two, okay, allocation of resource. Easily, we have national commitments. So we are Carabinieri, we have course at benefit at the CC Carabinieri Corps. The acronym is VSOS, Unit for Radio Mobile, and Foreign Language Course. But also in national commitment. So, member G Global Initiative inside out the doctrine United Nations SMD course open to the foreign student. And third point, the technical arrangement. The technical arrangement, this is a document. It was signed in 2016 among the COESPU, NATO Stability Policing Center of Excellence, and the permanent headquarters of the European Army Force to enhance their respective considering that operate principally common domain stability policing. The identified area, and according to the Article 2 of the technical arrangement, we have training and doctrine, operation, and support. So now, we go in the point 3 of the presentation, line of work. Is necessary to identify what is the line of work. So you go, okay, thanks. Line of work. So we are not in the battlefield. We are in a school, in a center of excellence. Our force. What are our first human resource before and logistic same. Force generation is concerned in this moment our human resource. So it's necessary. I think about our teacher, lecturers, instructor. They have one period of training activity, sure. Sure, they need one suitable rest period, but it is important for lecturer as well as need fresh course. I want in this point, I think to point out that teacher and instructor at the center are not only initiated to refresh course related of the subject of the specific teaching, but also they are put in the condition to participate in other course. Our subject matter expert, in addition to update the preparation in the field, in our opinion, in the one prepared in the field must have opportunity to activity that I asked to Colonel Daniel to support me for the translation, because in Italian è vivacità culturale. The translation, the correct translation, he showed me the way, is intellectual vivacity. So we have not only to know what I'm the expert, I'm the best in my domain, but I need to know what there is around, because if I know what is around, I can better link it with other activity. So it's important for this. It is important because we are not our center of excellence, but at the same time, we have a think tank inside this compound. Point B, I'm an optimizing resource. Easy to understand, and I go on and I skip the concept, but I want to speak about is important to share. At the moment, we have the perfect collaboration between the different. At the moment, we have the perfection between the different offices inside the trois entity. And what is why this is important? Because this is all of the issue of the planning. We have to speak the planning. The possibility of making inline programs change in face of the change in. For the point number 3, we have I write respect of national and religious holidays. Really, COESPUS has always conducted activity on behalf of learners from multiple states. So easy, in order to respect the different religions, countries, our planning always start from taking into consideration the date during the year that affect the various international components. An example given the period of the Ramadan, but is only to speak, is not only related to national and religious holidays. For us, in our, I want to stress the idea of that, because we respect the gender, we respect before the rest of the rest, but at the same time, the healthy. And the point D is the COVID requirement. Now, I'm not here to teach the floor about the COVID, but what is the way in the way we have managed the situation. So we have taken into account and applying the guidelines that were the most stringent internationally. So respect the the lesson envisaged by the specific UN sector document were planned regularly carried out, and so other idea about the COVID. This point is not to speak about the COVID, but to share what is our COESPU idea in the prudent planning to face a problem that yesterday was the COVID, and tomorrow, I don't know what is what will be the future problem. But I'm able, if I make prudent planning, to face it for the future. So after analysis of resource, allocation of resource, line of work is necessary to go on, and we join the management tool. So the first tool for us is the activity calendar, is the main working tool, since it allows the systematize the various activities that are carried out within the compound. It is made using a graphic layout with an expedition consultation. We use the color, we use the different color for the gray for the Italian Army, the red for the NATO, for the AGF, the yellow for the GPOI course. This is for, we have an expedition consultation. And for the future, the annual calendar of the activity until now, drafted and transmitted by the SWF office, my office, of COESPU to all stakeholders by December of the previous year. From this year will be made with projections to the following. I would like to remember that the drafting of the calendar, since it's done, is in sharing with all stakeholders, allow share review and the complete current calendar of activities, identify project, course, and educational events that are similar, review for completing information. And last, identify area where course and project have duplication on effort. When possible, develop limited. So, fast for facility calendar is a shared computer folder provide a real-time overview of classroom utilization. Easy. Event calendar. The event calendar is a dispatchable tool that summarizes in overview all events affect the compound. Example include activity related to open and closes ceremony at the course, national ceremony, and the solemn flag flag raising. But the last point is calendar of teacher and instructor engagement. This is our plan, our idea for the future to optimize the available force. A shared computer format is being developed between SWF office, the training department, and the dean, on which will be reported the already planned educational activity at home or abroad, and the period of absence for professional updating or leave for the teacher or the instructor. This tool is aimed at giving at all time, in the real time, a view of the workload already identified and the resource available at the potential level. So I think is a very useful instrument for this. So please go on. I put, who is better than a road signal to show the way what we need to do. So please go on. And the idea, in conclusion, in order to improve in the field of the prudent planning, it is considered useful to share the following point with the working group 3, so that they can be evaluated by subject matter expert for accurate analysis. So I recap: force regeneration, mode, timing, and resource, identify area where course and project have duplication, calendars of teacher and instructor engagement. Why? Because we have the calendar of facility. Why not the calendar of teacher engagement? And what I said before, why not one idea to necessity to one idea to make a contingency plan for different problems we can found in the time. So one idea is the strike of civilian workers. So the result will be presented during the afternoon outbriefing. Please go on. So.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Manacorda. Appreciate your briefing, as well as Major DeAngelis. I think we're going to turn it over to General Barbano to provide some inputs on this session. Sir.
Both the speakers for the efforts with two different approaches. Major DeAngelis provide us with a very, I would say, high insight on the matter of media engagement, which would represent the preconditions for the discussions this afternoon on this very interesting session, because it's the real payback for our meeting today is a session where we can discuss on how to improve, how to enhance our cooperation among the three entities here at COESPU. And improve the effectiveness of our cooperation based on the principles that were presented by Major DeAngelis. But of course, what we expect are clear and practical recommendations and suggestions on how to perform and to better perform in this area. On the other side, Lieutenant Colonel Manacorda has provided us with a case study, I would say, on how we apply prudent planning in COESPU, which is just an example. But what we need is how to match our different planning cycles and activities in order to better coordinate our efforts and find common areas where we can work together and without or exploiting the support that we can provide one each other without hindering or impacting on the already scheduled activities. That these two topics are not the only one that the working group could take into account, are just two examples of the activities. For instance, I would expect some indications, some recommendations or proposals for the topics to be included and to be better developed along the year for the next Stability Policing Day or other areas of cooperation. So thank you very much, and congratulations to both of you for your presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Colonel De Magistris.
You will manage eventually. It's a tongue twister. I will start from something before. I will ask in my working group to dwell also on the talking about environmental protection. I forgot to say, but there is a conundrum for the commander, like the protection of civilians. Also, environmental protection has got a huge conundrum. I mean, the operation imperative primacy. The commander is to take care of the force protection of the force itself. So to go, no, which is bad. So something which we should think about later on. Corporate identity. Thank you for the presentation. I mean, strategic communication, but corporate identity is fake, and this is something which I've been talking about and advocating a lot. We should move forward in unison. By moving forward in unison, only by moving forward in unison will we be able to make the difference as international stability policing up. It didn't happen so far, so we must be very frank. Although it was already a stake last year, so I will really strongly recommend to make difference this year, because otherwise it's just an exercise. Prudent planning, sir, you know that I'm very vocal on this. The center to meet the request for support very far in advance. We have the luxury to plan in advance. However, we are impacted by last-minute changes, which means that if I am not allowed to use this facility, for instance, I need to set my steering committee in the other facility. It means that I have to spend money because I have to accommodate a room which is not equipped for a conference towards my steering committee. And it is a lot of money which we would like to save to the taxpayers of the member states. So this is something which is to be addressed. My chief of staff, Lieutenant Colonel Mark Grasov, is very well aware about the issue and will bring about this issue, because for us, we have a strategic calendar which we continue to update, and we bring up provide all our counterparts in this hub with our engagement in advance. So receiving information about the ceremonies which are planned 1 year before, week before, as it happened recently, impacted our planning, because we were hosting an high-level visit from the CR, and we had to reschedule everything that are really senior level official from the US. So I will kindly ask Erogen for inform us far in advance on these matters. And then, there were several nice words said to this presentation, but still the reality is different. So I will strongly recommend some meetings in order to have coordination meetings in order to deconflict the calendars and program of work and the research plan. If we sit together far in advance, I think the quality of our deliverables will improve. There is a huge expertise available in this center, 11 different countries, so let's make the best use of this. Lastly, lecture database. It was mentioned that there are several lecturers available in COESPU. Same applies to our training for portfolio. We have very good lecturers of several levels, from tactical level to strategic ones. So why don't we match forces and we improve our deliverables? That's it from my side.
Thank you. Colonel Gonsalves.
I will be brief, and perhaps there is not a lot of things to add. I really agree with Colonel said a few minutes ago, and also Colonel Di Magistris. I would like to stress the importance of these two issues. Media is a very interesting topic because in nowadays, if you are not social media, you not exist. And that it was my guidance for my PPIO that is attending also this city policing day. And we are making an effort to be present in every social media by sharing our activities, sharing the activities of our aspects in the missions. There is a lot of things to do because it's not only about communication, but it is also about influencing our audience. And regarding media, we really exist. NATO, stability policy, Center of Excellence exists. COESPO exists. Also, Eurogen for us exists. What does not exist in social media is the stability policing app. So we should define a aim so can have and can define the ways and see what means we can allocate to have a common strategy on the communication to share the activities of our center, not as separate entities, but as common body. Regarding the present, yes, of course, planning is everything. And I'm fighting with the same problems that Colonel Di Magistris is fighting, but some of the activities that you are planning for the next year, or even for the next month, they are not depending only on my decision, but a decision from the level. So sometimes it's very tricky to have the only information in the right place. But as Lieutenant Colonel said in the first slide, I think that the planning will die in the first day when you are implementing the plan. The really important thing is to plan together so we can work in a better way together. Thank you.
I apologize. Now, like I said, feedback, I wanted to say takeaways. The best takeaways for today is for us, from a practical point of view, come from this session. So the discussion, I mean, I wish it would be very, very pragmatic and based on real life.
Okay, I realize that I am the last person standing between everyone and lunch. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about administrative stuff, and I'll share you some of my clever remarks on the presentations. So I will, in a moment, review kind of what we've been told to do at the working groups, but can still put up the working group slide that shows who is where, so that people know where they're going. We will have lunch till about 13:30. At which time the working groups will gather. The three leaders of the working groups are Colonel Cutini, who's leading the hybrid warfare group. Colonel Di Magistris is leading working group number 2, which is the strategic concepts and stability policing implications. And working group 3 will be led by Lieutenant Colonel Tatu from the Eurogen 4. Those working groups will proceed from 13:30 till 1500, at which time we will have presentations, the summary of conclusions, if you will, from the working groups for an hour. Each working group is offered 20 minutes, so I would ask that we keep those comments in that time frame. And allow time for our leaders in the crowd to have questions and provide some comments. So presentation 15 minutes, 5 minutes Q&A. I know we're perhaps shortchanging it, but that is the time that we have, and want to be respectful of everyone's time that has traveled here from other locations.
A single presentation will need working.
Yes, as the general mentioned, please, each working group has one presentation that captures the top 3 items that they discussed. And then we can, certainly we will have more work to do before the next time that we get together. It's more of an appetizer, if you will. And then we will close up around 1600, 1605. Closing remarks will be over 16:15, according to our plan. So we have the list. I guess everyone can see the list now. If you have any questions about what group you're in, please refer to the list. I will quickly cover some of the things we were asked to do. Okay, so General Barbano asked we better define roles and tasks that stability policing can perform in hybrid warfare. Who is the authority? How do we share intel? How do police units play an effective role combating? Also, we're asked to look at the legal ramifications of targeting and intelligence in these instances. Also, how is it that a hybrid attack that is not a physical attack could invoke Article 5? How do you recognize where the threat comes from? How do you identify the center of gravity that stability policing could protect? Okay, from session 2, so the feedback we got was leaders would like us to look at the strategic compass. How should Europe focus on security? Who is the entity that is responsible for providing security for the EU? Just some high-level questions. Would like the group to think about how stability policing can have a real role in strategic compass and step into the rapid deployment of police. General mentioned that the threat is more complex and challenging. We need more and different tools. Strategies are often too military-centric. How does stability policing play a role, more active role in phases and aspects of conflict, planning, operations, etc.? And just more confirming there's nothing related to stability policing in the documents. I think that will be something for the group to chew on. And just a quick recap, media, we need to figure out ways to do it better. And as far as planning is concerned, we need to work better together to make sure that we all complete our missions. Sorry for the speed of that. If there are any questions from the group leaders, please grab me afterwards. Sir, with your permission, I'd like to conclude the morning session and let everyone go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, sir.
Job. And